Welcome to Market Microstructure 2. We'll continue where we left off. We've been talking about limit orders, and in the last video we completed discussing marketable limit orders. So now we'll move on to the second of the four types of limit orders, called behind the market limit orders. With this example, we'll start with a new limit order book. Here you see the prices, 25.12 down 25.07, and I've written in ask and bid, and that therefore implies that these are our quotes, and further it implies that we now know that, the orange dots have been placed beside prices that indicate willingness to sell by a seller, and the light green dots are being placed beside the prices for buyers that are interested in buying shares. So the orange indicate interest in selling, the lime green indicates interest in buying. And that is our assumed limit order book, and over here we have the sizes at each of these prices. Okay, 300 shares at 25.12. Somebody wants to sell 400 shares at 25.11. By the way, these are specific to these prices. We could also calculate cumulative. In other words, let's just look real quick at the the sizes in a cumulative context. Anybody that's willing to sell at 25.10 is also willing to sell at 25.11. So at 25.11, the cumulative size would be 1,500, 1,100 plus 400. And then anybody who's willing to sell at 25.10 and 25.11 is also willing to sell at 25.12, and so that means cumulative size here would be 1,800. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes we look at cumulative, but it's probably best right now just to focus on the size at each specific price. But that's just an example of cumulative interest. Okay, so but don't get too bogged down in that. So this is our limit order book. Behind the market limit orders are orders that when they arrive, they will not execute. And since they won't execute, they will immediately add to the limit order book. So here's an example. Buy 700 XYZ at a limit price of 25.07. Well, buyers look for sellers. The lowest price any seller is willing to sell at right now is 25.10. This order is obviously not going to execute, so what happens to it? Well, its size, 700 shares, just gets added to the other size at 25.07. So this number becomes 1150. That's all that happens. The order doesn't execute. And rather than demanding liquidity and taking liquidity out of the limit order book, we see that as a consequence of this order arriving at the exchange, that we ended up with more size cumulative, more size in the limit order book anywhere. Doesn't have to be at the bid or the ask only, anywhere in the book. Okay? So as a result of this order arriving, liquidity is supplied to the limit order book. So we say this behind the market limit order supplies liquidity. Okay, it supplies liquidity. Now let's look at another. Let's look at a sell behind the market limit order. Sell 600 XYZ, limit price of 25.11. So this person is willing to sell 600 shares at a price of 25.11 or better. That means 25.11 or higher. Well, what happens? what's going to happen now is that since this order to sell 600 at 25.11 cannot execute because sellers look for buyers, and the highest price any buyers are willing to pay right now is 25.09, so this order is just going to go right to the limit order book. So 600 more shares are available at a price of 25.11. 25.11 currently has 400 plus 600. This now becomes 1,000. Okay. So now, after this order arrives, there are 1,000 shares in the limit order book at 25.11. Interest in selling, and so we see that this order sorry. Trying to figure out how to get this thing to go away. That's how you do it. Sorry. Okay. For some reason, this thing just, there we go. Sorry for that, but alrighty. So, we saw that the sell 600 shares at 25.11. Supplied liquidity, the size of 25.11 went from 400 to 1,000. And again, the main point of this is the behind the market sell limit order right here, supplied liquidity. The order did not execute. Let's now look at a third type of limit order, and that third type is at the market limit orders, at the market. And these are easy. An at the market limit order is just an order that is a limit order that comes through where the limit price that's specified is either the bid or the ask. If it's a buy order, the limit price specified is the bid. If it's a sell order, the limit price specified is the ask. So let's look back here at our limit order book. Okay, those are our prices. And here I've just put the bid and the ask down here for you with their sizes so we don't have to refer up. And so here we start off with this, a buy, an at the market limit order example, buy 200 XYZ limit 25.09. Well, okay, 200 shares at 25.09. Is it going to execute? Well, let's think buyers. This is a buy order. Buyers look for sellers. Sellers ask. The lowest price anyone's willing to sell at is 25.10. This order is going to go right to the limit order book. 200 more shares, and hence the bid size becomes 1,200. And that's that. Okay? And obviously we see this order is such that, well, we can make a generalization. At the market limit orders supply liquidity. At the market limit orders supply liquidity. Well, how about an example with an at the market limit order to sell? Sell 400 XYZ, limit 25.10. Sellers look for buyers, buyers bid. The highest price anyone's willing to pay is 25.09. This person won't sell for anything less than 25.10. So the order will not execute. There will not be a trade taking place with this order as part of it. And therefore this order and the 400 shares of interest in selling just go to the size in the limit order book at 25.10. So instead of 1,100, it becomes 1,500. Okay? And again, we see that that order, as is the case with all at-the-market limit orders, is such that we observe it supply liquidity. Okay, that's important to know. That at-the-market limit orders supply liquidity. Okay, at-the-market limit orders supply liquidity. So far we've seen marketable limit orders, behind-the-market limit orders, at-the-market limit orders. Now let's look at our fourth type. I'll call it D. Excuse me. And these are going to be in the market. limit orders. Okay, in the market limit orders. Well, this is easy. So let me just give you some new, we'll just start with some new data. Here's an ask price, and here's a bid price. The ask price is $75.52. The bid price is $75.48. Okay, here the bid-ask spread is seen to be 4 cents. And it's kind of obvious. And in the market limit order, well, first of all, I'll tell you, in the market limit order is always supply liquidity. They do not demand liquidity. And here's a nice example. Sell 100 XYZ at 75.50. Okay. Well, I'll put some made-up sizes here. 300, 800. Okay, those are sizes. Okay. So here is our, no, I forgot to put the word limit, sorry. Sell 100 XYZ, limit 75.50. Sellers look for buyers, buyers bid. This person is not willing to accept anything less than 75.50. This person is not willing to pay anything more than 75.48. No trade occurs. But something very interesting has happened. This is no longer the highest price that anybody's willing to, excuse me. Let me just erase that. Sorry. There we go. Sorry. So something very interesting has happened here. Okay? And what has happened is that this is not the lowest price at which anybody is willing to sell shares at. Okay? In fact, now someone's willing to sell at 75.50. So I'll put in here 75.50, and I'll put the 100 in the size over here, and then what next has to happen? Well, the word ask has to get erased from here, and the word ask has to get written in here. Okay, so now, as a result of the arrival of this in the market limit order, the ask price becomes 75.50, and we have a new ask price. The quotes has changed. The quotes has changed. Notice the singular plural of the quotes has changed. Kind of awkward. Okay, important thing to note is that in the market limit orders, make new markets. In the market limit orders, make new markets. And in this case, the market had been 75.48 bid, 75.52 ask, but the arrival of this order made a new market. The new market is this. Bidding 75.48, asking 75.50. Okay? So that's an example of an in-the-market limit order to sell. Let's look at an example of an in-the-market limit order to buy. I'm going to pretend this sell order never arrived, okay, to make it more clear for you, I think. So we'll go back to the 75.52 and 75.48. This is the bid. This is the ask. And the sizes originally were 300 and 800. Okay. Now let's assume, since we already saw a sell in the market limit order, let's look at a buy in the market limit order. Buy 400 XYZ, limit. Well, let's do 75.50 again. Buyers look for sellers, sellers ask. No one's willing to sell for anything less than 75.52. This fellow is not willing to pay any more than 75.50. All right. But something interesting has happened. 75.48 is no longer the highest price that anybody is willing to pay for this stock. Okay? So what I have to do now is I have to recognize that, and I have to put a 75.50 here in there. Put its size beside it, 400, and recognize that this 75.48 is no longer the bid. So I have to erase that. And rather, the bid is now 75.50. So the quotes after the arrival of this in the market limit order to buy change to become this. I'll put the size in there too. Okay? So that's an example of what happens when we have in the market limit orders. So we've looked at 4 types of limit orders, okay? Well, let me backstep. We started off with market orders, okay? Then we talked about limit orders, and there are 4 types. Marketable, and behind the market, at the market, and in the market. Trivia question, which one of these limit order types makes a new market? We just saw in the market limit orders make a new market. Okay, so there we go with that. Now a little more depth. When we first started this, I talked about marketable limit orders. That was in the last video. Marketable limit orders. And marketable limit orders demand liquidity, and that's true. But just let me just show you kind of, I'll call it a special case, okay? So this is a special case with respect to marketable limit orders, okay? What if we have the following? I'll just make up some numbers for our limit order book here. What if we have the ask at 1540, the bid at excuse me, 1539, and I'll put the sizes out here: 2,000, 3,000. There's also a 1538 down here with 1,000, and there's a 1541 here with 1,500 and a 1542 at 1,200 shares at that price, okay? Well, you know that since these are defined as the quotes, then the red dots must be indicating prices at which selling interest occurs, and the purple dots indicate prices at which buying interest occurs, okay? So, well, consider the following. This is interesting, special case. What if the following limit order comes in? Sell say 4,000, limit $15.39. Okay, think about that. What happens if that order arrives? Okay, what happens if that order arrives? Sell 4,000, limit 1539. Well, what's going to happen is the following. We will get a partial execution. Okay, this is a sell order. Sellers look for buyers. Buyers bid 1539. There are 3,000 shares available at that price of 1539. So these shares will actually be, that interest there will disappear because this sell order gets matched with that or those. This could be lots of people in those 3,000s. It may not just be one person. As a matter of fact, it probably isn't just one person, or probably isn't just one entity. And this gets matched with that. And so 3,000 shares disappear. But this person is not willing to sell for anything less than 1539. But even though there were people interested in buying at 1539, they didn't want all the 4,000. So what happens? What happens in this case? Well, again, partial execution, the 3,000 shares disappear, this order fills for 3,000 shares, but we can't forget that we have a standing limit order, SLO, standing limit order. There's an order that hasn't been filled, sell 1,000, limit 1539. Can you see that? After this order has a partial execution, we're left with a standing limit order, sell 1,000 shares. It's this 4,000 minus 3,000. Okay, well, this person's willing to sell at 1539. Well, what's interesting about that? Well, those remaining shares are now the lowest price at which someone is willing to sell. So now watch, this is very interesting. So this 1540 is no longer the ask. Okay, instead, instead, the 1,000 shares here become the size at 1539, and 1539, now watch this, becomes the ask. So the 1539 becomes the ask, and what do you think obviously is going to become the bid? Well, the highest price anyone's willing to pay to buy, which is now obviously 1538. So this is kind of an interesting thing. And what we're left with now is this as our new quotes. So that's a special case. Spend some time thinking about that. That's the end of this video. Thanks for watching.